I was not aware. I'm really busy. I'm a dad. I'm a business owner. I don't have time to think about music. I did not have time for a long time to think about Linkin Park, Chester, or any of that. Of course, this text correspondent led me down a rabbit hole, looking at all the new performances. I mean, I got caught up like the rest of you, okay? There is something going on right now. Linkin Park is back in the news, and there is Emily Armstrong taking lead vocals, and there's What is Linkin Park to begin with? There's all this stuff going on. There's this talk about Scientology. This is how this all came to be. And to me, well, I'm by no means a super fan whatsoever. I know all of the famous songs, and they've had quite a few singles. I remember seeing them on MTV a little bit, seeing Chester and seeing Mike, thinking Mike is kind of a post lyrics, very heartfelt, but very simple. It's not, they're easy to understand. And they came to prominence, I was maybe a little bit too old for them, right? I came of age in the early 90s. And so by the time Linkin Park were making their big splash, I was in college already. I was a bit of a music snob, a bit of a musician, and definitely. I mean, the people I was hanging around, and that goes back to this text messaging at the beginning. The people I was hanging around, it certainly wasn't a cool thing to enjoy their music. So I might have bowed my head when a song of theirs came on the radio. I was driving a lot and listening to the radio back then. That was pre-streaming days, and I was just listening to alt rock stations and enjoying it. But like I said, I had to out myself as a Linkin Park fan because I wasn't really. Now they came back on my radar, so I wasn't even thinking about them much. I'm not even sure that I knew the name of the band back, in the early 2000s when I was in college and thinking about that. But they came back on my radar after Chris Cornell died. 2017, May 2017. I heard about it and it hit me like a ton of bricks. I mean, I love Chris Cornell. I'm sure there'll be an episodes or multiple episodes about him. But when he died, I was super bummed out, started going on YouTube, looking at performances, and then I saw this performance of Chris Cornell performing with Linkin Park, and I'm like, wow. I mean, first of all, I really enjoyed it. Second of all, if Chris Cornell liked these guys, maybe I should have another look. I'm just gonna rewatch this video now. Look at those lines. It's a mini DV. Nice rap from Mike over here. Some epic synths. I got a lot to say about Mike. That's another time. Look at those interlaced footage. That really dates it. I remember shooting on mini DV. That's nice. I missed that handheld footage. DJ Han. There we go. Chester, he was such a good engager with the audiences. Listen to that sustained notes. Like, when I first heard Chester, I thought he was like, anyway. It's all blown out.
consuming, confusing. This lack of self-control I fear is never ending.
I thought when I first heard them that they sounded a bit like a boy band. They looked like a boy band. And Chester's voice was kind of clean. Oh, but that growl, look at it. And here comes Chris. You just can't mistake that voice. But he's not mocking it. I thought it might be ironic. They're hugging each other. He's putting in his emotion.
How I can't seem to find myself again.
Mike is just stoked. He's got a rock and roll legend with him.
There's just too much pressure to take.
I felt this way before. So
Such a different vocal style. And now they just go together. And that's a power. That's just a power harmony going on there. These two amazing vocalists duking it out. And the friendships. Anyway, that's how I got into it. Started listening to them with less shame, I guess. And then Chester died. And I was really bummed out as well. Like I said in my text, it was sad. To me, one of the things that Chester's death and Chris's death, I mean, I kind of see these two things together, is that the curse of 27, right? That if you make it into your 30s, you can escape the depression. You can, you've made it. You've made it out of the turbulent seas of your 20s into the relative safe harbor of your 30s and 40s. But, Chester was 40, Chris was in his 50s, Robin Williams happened around the same time. And so it brought fear to me because I was in a place where I was pretty depressed myself at the time. And I'm like, shit, I'm not in the clear anymore. I thought I'm in the clear. I thought, okay, things can get dark, but you have perspective at an older age. But those older fallen rock stars, it hit home. It was hard. This is kind of free-floating, so pardon the stream of consciousness, but let me address this whole Scientology thing going around. And now there's rumors that maybe Mike Shinoda is Scientologist himself. I don't know. I shouldn't really care, except the narratives. I'm interested in the narratives. I was interested in Scientology. I never came close. I grew up in Israel, but something about those new religions, these American religions, offering kind of an answer almost to the American malaise, right? Like the European religions, like Christianity and all that, it didn't offer a lot to people living in America. And Scientology, and I don't know much about it, but at its best, when it works the best, and that's what I was always jealous of these Scientologists, and Tom Cruise is the best example. It's like, they always seem positive. They're hard on themselves, like go out and achieve, pull yourself by your own bootstrap, all that stuff that people like me that suffer from depression, people like Chester Bennington that suffer from depression, envy, probably a lot, and don't belong there. certain kind of weakness. And I have no knowledge and really no opinion one way or another. But Mike Shinoda, to me, really, he is the leading creative force, the leading force, not just creative, just the leading force behind Linkin Park. And I'll talk more about it because he's an amazing guy. What he has achieved is amazing. And not only that, in every single interview and the aftermath of Chester's death, the way he handled that, the way he interfaced with the crowds, all this was just pitch perfect. So I wouldn't be terribly surprised if he is a Scientologist or adjacent to that, because he does fit into that kind of amazing, wholesome, successful in a way, like just taking a vision and ambitious that fits with that. And so I'm seeing the reactions online, and let me be the first to say that again, I think before I started to dive into all the outrage about Scientology, I went ahead and I listened to the show. I listened to the new single, and I loved Emily Armstrong. I think it was another perfect choice. The amount of time he waited, the amount of anticipation, Mike Shinoda just, executed that perfectly. It's a great idea to have a female vocalist, so there's not as much comparison. It's a different perspective. There's a new energy to it. A lot of it is great, and I think she's a very talented, very, very accomplished performer and vocalist, and exactly kind of what the band needed. Basically, if around the band there was this creativity, this ambition, you had Mike, always seeming to be on top of stuff, the model everything, and you have Chester, who's been battling demons since age 0. I'm not going to do a biography about him, not this time around at least. And he feels outside of it. There is no brotherhood. This idea of being in a band, and that was something that was so appealing to me, why I wanted to be in a band so much when I was younger, because that feeling of being in a brotherhood. The whole is greater than the sum of the parts. That attractive idea of a band. And Chester not finding that. Sinking into demons, coming out of it, being elated by successes, and then dropping down again. Well, that's what I'm thinking about a little bit. The alienation that this may cause. And the alienation that a lot of fans of Linkin Park are probably feeling right now. Because Mike Shinoda was and is the creative force, I think. At least creative in terms of creating, songwriter of Linkin Park. The aesthetic, the, mixture of hip-hop, electronica, metal, all these things. But Chester, he was the soul. He connected with the audiences the way that no one could. And the audiences, what I'm starting to see from the internet, are a lot of people that, could latch on to those simple lyrics, crawling in my skin, all these, very easy to identify, not complicated, and yet very relatable lyrics. I know that without that, they wouldn't have succeeded. They wouldn't have been on my radar. And here's a fallen soldier. Another fallen rock and roll god on the altar. He's not a god. He's a sacrifice. He's a self-willing sacrifice. I'm going to keep going back to religious iconography because it's just appropriate. It comes martyrdom, narcissism, the idea of wanting to be sacrificed on the altar of fame. But then when it becomes really dark, none of that matters anymore. And we're left with little icons, ideas of people, and some beautiful music that we can latch onto.